Thank you, Christian. Yep. So I will also be sharing my presentation. Okay. Just a little bit slow this morning. Okay, so put that up there. Put it on slideshow. Can everybody see the screen? The first slide?
Sure can.
Thank you very much. So welcome everyone to the iBuilder conference formats, presentation formats. It's a brief presentation really, just to recap on the different, the formats in which you can present at iBuilder. Our previous workshops, Craig and myself presented abstract writing. So the elements that are involved in writing an abstract, how to be successful, aligning with the conference theme. So the first couple of slides, we'll revisit just the themes that you've aligned to. But before that, to an acknowledgement of the country, we acknowledge the ancestors, elders and families of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners of university land. We also acknowledge all traditional owners of country throughout Victoria and pay our respect to their culture, their elders past, present and future. As we share our own knowledge practices within the university, may we pay respect to the deep knowledge embedded within the Aboriginal community and their ownership of country. We acknowledge that the land on which we meet is a place of age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal, and that the Kulin people's living culture has a unique role in the life of this region. I'm presenting here from St Albans campus, Victoria Uni. So welcome to this presentation. So the rationale for this particular session is to have a brief overview of what was presented previously, the conference themes, iBuilder conference themes, review of the selection criteria, the rubrics that we'd aligned our abstracts to, but mainly to examine the different presentation formats that's offered in the 2026 online presentation, the conference formats. So establishing key criteria to support the design and delivery of your presentation. So by now, if you're presenting an iBuilder, you'd have submitted your abstracts and awaiting a decision. So by mid-June to end June, you would receive confirmation of the format, the presentation format. So you may have opted for a specific format, but you will receive the decision in due course. But this presentation will give you an insight into all the different presentation formats for now and for future, so you can prepare accordingly. A bit of housekeeping, the session is being recorded. You're welcome to post questions in the chat, but excuse me, because I will be, I'm the only one presenting here at the moment. We wish Craig a speedy recovery. He's not here at the moment. So at the end of the presentation, I'll go through the chat or reply to your questions after the presentation. There will be a Q&A opportunity at the end of the session as well. And of course, a summary of the workshop will be circulated to all participants and those who are interested, as well as a recording shared via the iBuilder YouTube channel. So you'll have all the resources that's presented today. A little bit about iBuilder, as you've heard already. If you're not a member already, please do scan the QR code. Certain institutions, I know at VU and at Southern Cross University as well, we are offering free membership for this particular year. It's a one-year membership to all academic staff. So please do register. So the overall aims of iBuilder is to advance scholarship and practice in the block and intensive mode pedagogy, education and research, to share and disseminate block and intensive mode education knowledge and practice, and to build networks to promote collaboration and dissemination of knowledge. So please do join up if you haven't already done so. Especially for our conference, it's being hosted online by University of Montana Western from the 30th of September till the 1st of October. So abstract submissions have closed but the presentation formats, whether you're presenting this year or not, would give you an idea of how you can prepare yourself for this year and for following years. So the previous workshops, the abstract writing workshops, we went through the 4 key themes of iBuilder, which is innovation and research, a description, professional development and professional practice, curriculum assessment and feedback, and enhancing learning, teaching, and student experience. Those are the 4 overarching themes of this conference. So your abstracts would have been aligned to these themes. And in addressing the selection criteria, we talked about aligning your abstract, and which is also relevant for whether it's a poster or whether it's an oral presentation formats we're going to talk about today, aligning them to the criteria for the conference. So number 1 is relevance to the conference theme, the 4 key themes presented before. What to include and what not to include was also discussed. The guide, the criteria guide, was also circulated out to all interested participants. So that's just to give you an idea to align with the conference themes and to provide a description of the work. So you'd have done this in your abstract, but in your presentation format, to have a logical description with details, specific details of the plans, methods, design of the data collection and analysis methods as well. So to be, aware of what to include in those that specific format is something we will discuss today, aligning with that selection criteria. So contribution to scholarship of practice. So evidence of outcomes, the impact and the effectiveness have been clearly stated with the contributions outlined. So it was advised to do that in your abstracts. That's also going to be a rebounding theme in the conference presentation. So what's new about your work? How does it extend or challenge or apply the theory? Who benefits and how? So the community benefit or contribution to that body of knowledge. Of course, at the last presentation, the first abstract writing workshop, we provided a quick revision checklist of how you can address these themes and the key points that's required when you're drafting your abstract. So having a clear focus aligned with the theme, background and context, the methodology, because having clear methodology described in your writing, evidence, it's an evidence-based approach of having clear numbers, whether you're anticipating data or the methodology, how you're going to do your statistical analysis, for example. So qualitative findings, to provide evidence for that, and the contribution. What is new? Okay, so as I mentioned before, so what is specific about your project, and of course the overall clarity. So keeping it concise, but at the same time having that clarity to get your message clearly across to your audience. Keeping within the word count we talked about for the abstract. Here we will talk about, if it's an oral presentation, keeping within your time limit, but still aligning your presentation in line with the key criteria and the conference themes. So what are these presentation formats? So as per the iBuilder website, there are 4 key presentation formats. One is a poster, a visual presentation. There are 2 types of oral presentations. One is a lightning talk, which is a quick 5-minute research pitch for your presentation. There is a standard, a slightly longer oral presentation, 10 minutes with 5 minutes Q&A, so totally 15-minute oral presentation. Then there is an interactive workshop, which is a 45-minute session, which is more for hands-on activities. So what we'll do today is dissect the different formats and how you can design some tools, tips, and resources to guide you in designing effective formats. So those are the 3 key criteria: a visual format in a poster, using concise text and strong visual hierarchy. We will talk about key design elements to design your poster, presenting key findings clearly, balancing visuals with essential information, so what to include, what we could leave out. Prepare a short verbal explanation for the audience. Quite often when we have a poster presentation, you'd be prepared to talk about your poster a little bit if there are questions or if the audience comes up to you. It's a general format, so being able to verbalize if you're asked questions about your poster. Then the oral presentations are two different formats where we have the lightning talk or the oral presentation, the slightly longer 10, 15-minute overall oral presentation is communicating one key message clearly. So given it's a smaller time frame, we will dissect out the lightning versus the oral presentation and how you can structure these formats effectively. Keeping slides visually simple yet engaging. Practice the timing and pacing quite carefully given the time constraints, especially with the lightning talk. We'll guide you how to do that. And use impactful openings, hook statements, as we call them. So impactful openings and conclusions are how you can leave the audience with an impact. So we will look at that for the lightning versus the oral presentation. And the last, it's an oral presentation, but it's an interactive workshop session, 45 minutes, where you encourage the audience to participate in an activity. So using active learning strategies, activities and discussion prompts. So promoting discussion of your research, creating collaborative learning experiences, as well as managing engagement and timing effectively. 45 minutes seems like a long time, but your talking time is limited, is how you design the activities to fit in with that 45 minutes with time for Q&A as well. And Pushpa mentioned before, given this year, it's going to be online, so it's mindful to have online activities. So if you've got tools and resources, keeping in mind how you can engage your audience online. But this presentation is valid whether it's an online conference or in future, if it's a face-to-face conference, the design elements would be, the formats would be relevant in either presentation styles. So let's start with the poster presentation. That is usually the first category most people get accepted for. I know from my personal experience as a postdoc and in my early days, although I'd want to go for an oral presentation, it was always on the safer side to choose a poster because it's, you have more time designing the visual elements, and it's a practice run for, articulating how you're going to express your research before we go in for a full longer presentation format. So the first impressions matter. So in a visual format, a successful poster would be eye-catching and attractive, to use visuals to draw people from a distance. Even if they're a meter away, they'll be drawn to come and engage with your poster and talk to you about your research. It should be easy to follow. Create a layout that is, can be navigated easily as well. So we will talk about some elements that you can specifically use to design this. Although it's a visual format presentation, the poster is also narrative driven. Draw your audience to a story that you're presenting visually. So it tells a story of your research and helps it stand out and able to stand on its own. So function as a snapshot of your research without the oral presentation, but being, the ability to draw your audience, to engage them, to invite questions. So you can speak about your poster, but drawing that audience in is a key element. How do we do that? I've adapted these design principles from Hertzer, who recently presented on the different presentation formats for their conference, which I thought is also, this is what we've been doing, what I've implemented without realizing that's what I've been doing. So I said, this is great to inform our colleagues as well who are designing posters for iBuilter. What are these design principles? This is a proven formula that you could use for effective visual communications using hierarchy. So what you would like the audience to notice first. Okay, alignment, creating order and organization within your layout. Using negative space effectively, so giving your content room to breathe. And of course, color and contrast, helping your elements stand out. So in the upcoming slides, we will dissect each of these elements, and I'll give you an example of what is an effective design principle that's been implemented. Hierarchy. Okay, so establishing a clear layout with visual flow. So using hierarchy will help your viewers navigate clearly your composition, the message that you're trying to get across. Create a simple visual flow, either from left to right or top to bottom. It should be easy for the viewers to navigate. You can direct their attention to where you want to guide them to your poster. Establish the most important elements. Okay, the clear message that you would like to get across to your audience. Consider how color, size, and placement of the text and other elements could direct the eye. So really guiding your audience to what you want them to see and the key take-home message that you're offering. So you grab the attention, and it starts off with the heading itself. So having a creative heading, but the layout of that poster overall. So the heading sets the scene from the hierarchy, from the heading through to the reading flow, the visual flow. For example, the image on the right is best practice, where it directs the eye and establishes the most important element. So it guides, it's almost like a flow chart, guiding the viewer to the key elements in a logical manner. So it uses lines, arrows, numbers, letters or boxes to help your audience navigate through the information. Tips to avoid, like the image on the right, having too many elements competing for the audience's attention will be distracting. So it lacks clarity or flow, making the information appear overwhelming. It may be great data, maybe great images, but they all don't fit together all at once. So it's choosing the best image, the best elements to clearly highlight your message. Alignment. So using alignment efficiently to create visual order, helping the viewer navigate through the design. So aligning elements in a clear manner allows the audience to create a visual connection from one element to the other. So logical flow. Alignment should be consistent. Okay, always consistent, so you're not confusing the viewer. So if it almost lines up, then line it up. Exactly. So nowadays we have the tools. I'll go through a couple of resources that you can use to efficiently design these layouts, but having them aligning correctly will engage, to provide that clarity. Use a grid system. So when we say aligning up correctly, using the grid system will divide the whole poster into invisible sections or structured content. So you don't need to have lines everywhere, but having, reference points to align your elements will make it visually a lot more appealing. So using visual order to organize your layout is beneficial. This aspect of negative space, this is where there's something that I've used without knowing that's what it's called. Negative space is deliberately adding space to allow your elements to breathe, visual breathing pretty much. That avoids visual clutter, ensuring all elements are spaced out and gives a clear visual flow, reading flow. So it helps to create a sense of visual balance and relief for the eye. So having too many elements crammed together or not aligned will be distracting. Having margins around the outside of the document for visual padding creates a nice layout. Create consistent spacing between all elements. So having the grid system will allow you to evenly lay out the elements, and that will avoid having distractions. So avoiding distracting backgrounds, having a simple solid color is best, rather than a graphic background with images embedded for or data and images would be too much of a visual overload, is what we found. So having a clear, solid background with your images standing out would be a lot more eye-catching with room to breathe. So having these spaces around the edges and in between, whether it's your text or your images, will enhance the clarity, visual clarity. And here's an example. The poster on the left is clear, consistent, all the elements are aligned evenly, and the text and the image, the visual components pretty much match up, whether it's the color scheme and the layout, the alignment, having the margins to create the padding, allow the visual elements to breathe. And it's a lot more appealing, visually appeasing to the eye. Whereas the one on the right, although it may have solid data, great information, has some great images there, it's a little bit cluttered. The layout is cluttered. There is no clear grid structure or alignment, so that the reader is not able to easily navigate through what they read first and how that flows through. So having more negative space is required to create order and provide relief for the eye. So that's one thing that I picked up from my experience with the posters, to have the layout to have that negative space. Last but not least, contrast and color. So with any visual design elements, to ensure that there is a strong contrast between the text and the background. Nothing worse than having a light faded background with light colored text. It's very much straining on the eye. For a viewer, they'll be less engaged to come read. Therefore, having a clear contrast between the text and the background, it's an essential #1 guide. Having a simple color scheme of 2 to 4 colors to emphasize, differentiate and add the visual interest. And those could be shades of the one color. So 2 to 3 shades of the one color with a 1 accent color, which is a standout color. Like the example I showed you here on the left, will be a lot more visually appealing than having too many accent colors. So use accent colors in moderation. Those are the contrast, the striking colors, to draw attention to just the key areas. So you direct your viewer to a specific point you'd like to make. So all diagrams, images and graphs, if they fit into your color scheme, so you choose a palette that aligns with the images that you have, makes it a lot more visually appeasing. So in terms of the poster design, most conferences and iBuilder is also a A1 poster size, which is 594 millimeters by 841 millimeters in dimensions. There are various tools out there that you can use to design. Ones that I've tried and tested that I'd use is Adobe Express. I also use Illustrator, but I'm a big fan of Canva now for designing posters because of the user-friendly interface, and now all these resources, and it's not limited to this, there's various other resources. They all have an AI element built into them to help you speed up that process. So they have professional templates for academic posters. So you have a clear starting board where you can add your elements. Easy to use, so user-friendly. There's very little design expertise. I mean, if you're familiar with using Illustrator or Adobe Express, you can use the advanced features even more. But even then, the little tutorials was very easy to follow. So in Canva especially, I think a lot of people are using Canva nowadays, but it's very user-friendly and they have ready-to-use templates. Visually engaging for communication, so already aligned with the design principles, so you have a smorgasbord to choose from. Fast creation, as I mentioned, they all have AI integration and templates, so you can quickly design or tweak your designs to your needs, so it saves a lot of time. What I really like is having access to high quality assets, so you have elements in there ready to go, and when you're designing a poster or a presentation, you're working with your team, these resources support collaboration and feedback in real time. So you can share the document, share the file, and they all can contribute. And that's saving time, saving multiple file versions, and it works across devices, different platforms with cloud saving. So these are valuable features, and at the end of the day, you will have a presentation ready output format. Good for you to either take it for printing, or if it's a online format, then a digital version you can put up as well. So one thing I'd like to add, which I don't have on my slides, is that when you have a digital poster, you can add, I've seen a lot of posters nowadays with a QR code where you can have that an extra video explaining your poster, or even if it's a printed poster, having that QR code with that explanation to a video, for example. Even if you're not standing at your poster, if an audience comes in and they can scan it, they directly have access to a little bit more engagement with you. So, so having that added in there, or an audio or a video format, can be linked into these posters. All that is supported by these design tools. Adobe Express certainly does that. Illustrator does that. I believe Canva does that as well. So that's the poster presentation. When it comes to the oral presentation formats, we'll start off with the lightning talk. As the name suggests, it's a very rapid, short turnaround time. 5 minutes is not much time to present your research, to be honest, but think of it more of as a research pitch. Okay, it's best suited for if you're in your early days of research. There's not too much data or findings to present, but you really want to encourage a discussion and generate interest in your project. Get some talk about what you're doing, and a great opportunity to invite collaborations from these conferences. So it's a 5-minute talk with a bit of Q&A at the end. So design your presentation to your time slot. So plan to the time, not over it. So these lightning talks are timed. I believe you will get a heads up when you're about a minute to go, and definitely a heads up if you're on time, if you're going over time. So you definitely don't want to go too over time. So set your piece tight, rehearsed, and deliberate. 5 minutes is not too much time at all. And leaving that space, a breathing space for that Q&A, that's where the value lives. So you can design it as part of your talk, but 5 minutes is your research pitch to generate interest and discussions. So what can you do in 5 minutes, given that it's not much time? You can showcase a teaching innovation. You can present a work in progress. So it's preliminary findings. You may have preliminary data or no data just yet. This is a great plan. Ethics has been approved. You're ready to hit the ground running. It's what you aim to do. You can share a practical tip, a strategy or tool. Main idea is to spark conversation, to get the interest and the buzz with networking, the opportunity to say, you're doing this great work, or you want to do this great work, what resources, who can help come on board. And it's especially useful for first-time presenters at conference. And I know we have some people here. So whether it's a poster or a lightning talk, you can gain confidence as a first-time conference presenter within that short time. Okay, and get some valuable feedback on the project that you're intending to do. How do you structure it? And this is just a guide. This is not a stipulated format, but this is something that's worked for me to how to effectively design a 5-minute lightning talk presentation. Context or the problem. So the introduction would be a minute, roughly a minute. What you did. 2 minutes, about a couple of minutes, that is the main story. So what you did or what you intend to do if your project is not up and running yet. Key outcomes, okay, whether you've achieved outcomes already, some of them, or this is what you expect to come out of the study, about a minute, and why it matters. It's that research impact. Why is this important to do? That will get that engagement from the audience, that interest sparked. I remember this was several years ago, back in 2014, when I started at VU. I had a 5-minute research pitch as a first postdoc, and it was Tom Clark, our now dean, who gave training to deliver a research pitch. So I'm thinking when it's a lightning talk, it's pretty much a research pitch to get that buzz and to network. So they're valuable tips, and that's what I've implemented here. What I'd structured for my 5-minute research pitch is what I'm presenting here as a guide to your lightning talk with iBuilter. The second type of oral presentation, it's your slightly longer 10-minute presentation, 15 minutes overall. There's a Q&A component as well. The idea is the same, to have, to plan to your time. Don't go over it. It'll be timed. But because you have that few minutes extra, you can provide a little bit more understanding of your work. You can go into a little bit more detail, so when you get feedback from the audience, it'll be a little bit more scholarly feedback on what you've achieved or what you intend to do. So what you can do in a 10-minute presentation or 15-minute overall, you can present completed research or one that is, near completion. You would have that time, that extra time, to divvy up for the methodology, explaining your methodology and your findings in a little bit more detail. Share data evaluation or evidence of what you'd produced. Therefore, the implications and the outcomes and the future directions can be a little bit more articulated within that extra time. Hence, you have the opportunity to receive substantial scholarly feedback from that audience. So rather than just a research pitch, you have a bit more of that time to gain valuable feedback, but again, networking and sharing that information. So that's, could be a guide to your 10-minute. And how would I structure that? Again, this is a rough timeline or a guide to how you can divvy it up. Background and rationale, a couple of minutes, but I would say the project, research design, and the findings and the results would have more of a time structure to it, the 3 minutes each to explain what you did and what you've found, your data, and of course the implications, the impact, and the recommendations, the outcomes. A couple of minutes to finish your presentation. So that will invite more feedback in Q&A, more specific scholarly feedback. A bit of tips, guide, and resources, what you can do, whether it's a lightning or an oral presentation. Remember I said to have a hook statement. To open with a hook is to make your audience care about your project or your study, what you're presenting, even before they start to know about the details of your project. So you can choose, for example, a vivid moment. So whether it's starting with an opening line, a student emailed me at 11:47 p.m., just one line. The audience immediately leans in because you're narrating, you're setting the scene for a particular story, so engaging them. It could be a provocative question. For example, what if everything we know about feedback is solving the wrong problem? So immediately getting the audience to think before you present your specific story. If you're a stats person, numbers speak volumes, right? So a surprising number saying 73%, and yet we keep designing as if it's 30. So having numbers that earns your time, whether it's your 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you're engaging the audience. That's the hook statement, right? Or another option would be a reframe. So you could say, we called it disengagement. It turned out to be something else entirely. So if your project is about student engagement or disengagement in class, or active learning strategies, tips and resources, start off with a reframing that question. But it's important that you pick one. It doesn't have to be any of these 4. These are just some examples. Pick one hook statement, stick to it. Rehearse the first 60 seconds until it's become effortless for you, because that's the first 1 minute where you can really grab the attention of your audience. Given 5 minutes, you need to get the audience full attention within the first minute. So rehearse and have one clear hook statement to get them in. what you want to achieve in this, whether it's a lightning or an oral presentation, is to build, land, and invite. So build just enough context, just enough method scaffolded into your presentation. Land, the one thing that the audience will remember and they'll repeat tomorrow. So you've got your landing for your, what you're trying to say, the clear take-home message. And that ultimately invites the audience to say, so what? Okay, so what can we do next? And then it hands the questions over to the room. So rather than just saying, thank you for listening, any questions? And with, if you're presenting and you've got another poster, you're doing a lightning and a poster, you can cue them to your poster. Say, come and see me at stand 12, if that's where your poster is. Or invite discussions. So don't land with a statement saying, thank you for listening, or any questions, and leave it at that. If you can have a more open invite to collaborate. So that might be more efficient. So the Q&A is part of your talk. So designed to hand over your presentation by inviting questions, leading the audience to that. Some guides on what you can do for an effective oral presentation, whether it's a 5 or 10 minute, definitely rehearse. Sticking to your time limit is important. Tell a story, use a specific case or a case study if you have it, so keep it simple. Cue the poster if you're presenting a poster as well, or your visual aid, cue to that. One message that's repeated. Okay, clear message, take home message. Few slides. You don't need too many slides, so that'll give breathing room for your audience to listen and engage. Timing is critical. I keep saying that because it's time. It's better to finish 30 seconds early and be generous with your Q&A, inviting discussions, rather than going over time. So please stick to the time limit, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, stick to that time. So this is what we've talked about so far. I won't go through every single one point, and you will have these slides to look through. So it's a little comparison table between the lightning talk and an oral presentation, what we've gone through, the duration, what you can include, the number of slides, the takeaway message, structure that we've talked about, divvying up your time, and of course, knowing what that specific session format allows you to do within that 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so that whether it's just an introduction to your presentation, or you can discuss more data if it's towards an end of a project, for example. So depending on what stage you are in your project, align it to that specific session format. Last but not least, 45-minute interactive workshops. So these are the engaging presentations. There is no hard and fast rule how you divvy it up, but this is one that's worked for us, where we had, out of 45 minutes total. Don't plan beyond that time, as with the other lightning and oral presentations. These are times, so stick to the time limit. Within that 45 minutes, have your activity, the interactive session, about 35 minutes, 35 to 37 minutes, the remaining for Q&A, wrap up and Q&A. So roughly 80% activity, 20% Q&A is a rough guide. Okay, so effectively manage. So aim for a presentation for about 10 to 15 slides, because you don't want it to end up being a lecture. As the name suggests, the interactive workshop is participant-centered. So what are good design principles for a workshop presentation? The participants have to be doing an activity. Consider how they might be actively engaged in problem solving, creating, or completing a structured task. Now it's an online conference this year, so maybe breakout room activities or interactive, so that they can engage in. Alignment. Just like we've talked about alignment in the poster, aligning your interactive sections, the activities, is important. Have a clear aim for your workshop. What are you trying to achieve, or what would you like your participants to do to give you clear outcomes, learning outcomes and activities, theoretical frameworks that all align closely with the conference themes. So to get a successful interactive presentation, you have to show that you're aligning with the conference theme. So the activities that you design, tick those boxes for that conference theme. It's evidence-based, as we said, you know, the first slide I presented, evidence-based poster, evidence-based oral presentation or lightning presentation. It's evidence-based interactive workshops. So back your practical activities with relevant literature. So what is the basis for the activities that you're doing? How does it line up with your project? From established literature. So a possible structure you could have in your 45 minutes is to have a clear introduction, set the goals, outlines expectations, establish the sessions. Why? Why are they doing this activity? The core activities, clearly explain the instructions. So if you participants are going into breakout rooms, they've got a clear idea of what is expected from them. So consider a 3:1 ratio of active work to facilitator talking. So there's enough time to explain the reason behind why you're getting them to do a particular activity. And you can also get feedback on that. For example, using live polls or scenarios or debates, using activities. These are just some examples, you know, how it might suit your presentation. Framing your presentation. So present core concepts, frameworks, or brief literature review. So again, that lines up with the evidence. So you're clearly articulating why you're asking your audience to do a particular activity. And of course, wrap up and reflection. Synthesize the work completed. Share the resources and invite final thoughts and comments. So that kind of sets the leeway into the Q&A session as well. So this is a possible design structure that you could use to design an effective interactive workshop. But the key idea, it's not a 45-minute presentation or view talking. It is an active engagement, inviting the participants to do an activity, okay, or multiple activities. You can design that. So what would you need? Pre-event checks for a workshop. Make sure you have the right materials because you're going to be engaging them in activities. Prepare, whether it's a digital prompts, whether it's Padlets or quizzes, what kind of tools and resources are you going to use? Any other equipment, or you know, if it's in person, you may have handouts or activities, physical activities, especially if it's online, having appropriate software and apps. Do the audience need to create an account to log in, for example, and they can do an online activity for that? So have clear instructions on that. Populate and refine. So have a clear idea of what resources, digital or you know, a hard copy resources you need, and decide how these would be accessible and shareable, whether it's in person or online, especially this year being online. As I said, if the audience need to create an account, make sure that's inbuilt into your activity as number one. And then you can take it that way. And of course, timing. As with all oral presentations, rehearse the timing of your slide deck, the main component, and also a rough idea of how much time you're going to dedicate. If it's in a breakout room or if it's a main room activity, have clear timelines of an idea of how those activities are going to run. Always best practice to design or to be prepared for less time rather than going over time. So there may be external factors, technical glitches, online especially. So make sure those activities have that time padding to allow for little delays. So it's preparing to be under time would be valuable. That's it from me today, actually. So Craig and I are designing you know, proposing upcoming workshops in the follow-up to this session. The date will be confirmed, but it will be after we receive our the decisions from iBuilter. So you would know whether your abstract abstract is accepted for a poster or a lightning, oral presentation, or interactive workshop. So the second session is aimed to have guided examples from experienced mentors. So I'm calling on our iBuilder team here, people who've presented our iBuilder as well, and our senior mentors, so participants can gain an opportunity to get insights from these experienced academics who will share practical examples in breakout rooms. So we can design activities to say, well, this is how we deliver a hook statement. Here's an example of what I've done, or tailored for the specific presentation formats. That's the overall idea of what we're aiming for. So we'll know by the end of June, so possibly July. July is when we're aiming, and we will inform everyone here of that date. So thank you everyone for coming in. I'd like to open up for questions. I think that'll be time to check the chat box.
Thanks for that, Gaia.
You're welcome.
I had a few questions, but they're already answered by Pushpa mainly, and Christian too.
Great. Thank you both for looking after the chat. Yep. And we will share these resources. Okay, so I will stop the recording now. Did you want to add anything, Pushpa or Christian, specifically from iBuilder point of view before I stop the recording? Anything that may add value? Have I missed anything, or is there anything that you wanted to add?
All good, Gaia. Well done.
All good. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll stop the recording now.